Hi everyone, welcome back. Welcome if you're new here. I teach life improvement, all things manifestation. I do subliminal videos to help you manifest and the occasional tarot reading. So if you are into that kind of content, please make sure that you subscribe and let's get into the video. So today I want to talk about SATS. Which is state akin to sleep. Now, if you've read Neville before or watched other coaches, I'm sure you've heard of this before. I personally think it's a pretty good technique, but I have a hard time visualizing. So I was testing out some other things to try to see if they would still work, because obviously, you know, our brain mostly runs on words more than pictures really. But let's get right into it. So what is SATS? So basically throughout the day, you have states where your brain is entering the theta wave, and that's where your subconscious is pretty much most open and most receptive. Now, a lot of people think that it's only when you're going to sleep or when you're just waking up, but from what I understand, it's actually every time you're doing something on autopilot or you're in a state of flow. So for me personally, for example, I like to do puzzles and diamond pictures and stuff like that, and I can let something run in the background and not listen, just tune everything out, but whatever is running in the background, my mind obviously is still listening to. So there's this audiobook I used to listen to all the time whenever I would do something else. I would never sit and just actively listen. I would always do the laundry or the dishes or just something else entirely. But I noticed that I could still recite the audiobook almost word for word, not entirely, which I am going to get to, but most of it I already knew by heart. And there were some things that came up though that I noticed. It was almost like hearing them for the first time, even though I've heard it like 20 times over, which is why you will oftentimes find, you know, coaches who are really successful tell you that too many affirmations are not good for you because some things are gonna get lost in the shuffle. I as a subliminal maker, personally, I see this a lot when there are videos that have like 50 affirmations. It's not the more the merrier, it's actually the less the better. The more your one affirmation can encompass, the better it is for your brain to understand what it is that you actually want. Because even after listening to the audiobook a million times, there were still situations that was described, that I couldn't actively recall. Why? Because they got lost in the shuffle. So basically what it is that, you know, you're entering the part of your brain that is running everything on autopilot, the subconscious state, whenever you're in a state akin to sleep. Now, obviously during that time, it's best to affirm, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't affirm throughout the day and flip your thoughts and do all of that, but it definitely helps to have a little bit of like shortcut to your subconscious, if you will, and take time either out of your day if you can to sit down and meditate, or if you're doing some tasks, affirm on the side. Now, the specific technique that SATS requires when you go to bed especially is described as picking a small scene that you like and then visualize it. So 5 to 10 seconds is what they said, which is where we again come into the territory of not doing too much because your brain might not be able to pick up everything in just bits and pieces, which is obviously not what you want. And then just like loop it as long as you can, consciously focus on it until you fall asleep. Now, I've tried it. I didn't really like it. It was very hard for me. I got very frustrated because my thoughts just kept, you know, drifting to other things. I felt like I couldn't hold the scene in place. And I did end up dreaming about whatever it was I was affirming, like as in it was coming in ways that I couldn't even predict. But even the scenarios that my brain concocted that could have been responsible for it coming in didn't feel right to me. Like I woke up and I was more anxious and like annoyed about it than really feeling like, oh, I really have it. So I think in my case, my brain was more trying to look for answers that made sense to it at the time, but still held blockages and maybe even some resentment towards the people who were supposed to carry it out. So I felt like it was difficult for me to stick with it. The next night, what I ended up doing was I actually wrote a small script. Like I wrote out a small scenario. It was very in detail and it was covering several desires, which I'm going to make a separate video about. And I was reading it to myself until I was able to memorize it. Now, I'm not the best at memorizing, so it took me a minute and I cut out some sentences because it was too much. And I did that until I could memorize it. And then I kept affirming it to myself with my eyes closed. So I was letting myself go into the state of SATS. And then I kept saying the sentence over and over again, and I noticed, I could see in my mind's eye how my brain was starting to form these pictures alongside what I was affirming. The crazy part, however, is that my brain did not produce the same pictures over and over again. It was always a little bit different here and a little bit different there, which again, the how is not up to us, so that does come into play. But I felt more secure, and even though it was difficult to like give power over to my subconscious in that way, I felt I was more in control of what I was doing because the affirmations never changed, and everything else I just left up to my brain. And when I woke up the next morning, I was able to continue that, and I just felt a lot more at peace when I woke up, and some of the things that I had affirmed for had already come true the next morning. So it is definitely a technique that works very, very fast if you find a way to do it for yourself. But at the end of the day, I know that there's a lot of people who tried SATS and who weren't really satisfied or happy with it because they have a problem visualizing, or they felt like it wasn't going quickly enough. Now, mind you, only 1 out of like, I think 6 or 7 desires that I put in there came true, but it was still something, right? So I would recommend you doing, if you are doing several things, or even if you're not doing several things, pick at least 2. One that might look a little bit bigger to you, and one that's like really small and can go very fast. Because again, this is all about, you knowing your power, you're proving your power to yourself. And when you're taking a small desire that can be brought in really quickly, really, really easily, I think that will help train, your manifestation muscle. You get instant gratification from it. I think that might be a good way to start. But I just wanted to make a video like explaining my experience with it and telling y'all that it's okay to script, that it's okay to write it down. And I literally used affirmations and made a story out of it. So I wasn't even going out of my way to be crazy creative or whatever. I think some of my affirmations were, I have it all, and I'm this, that, the other, and my life looks like this, and like just your standard run-of-the-mill affirmations, which I did to kind of see how it went. I usually go a little bit deeper and do a little bit more like actual script writing, but it's not necessary. That's why I tested it, because I know a lot of people don't really want to bother, and you shouldn't be difficult. You've been manifesting your whole life, and this is all about making it as easy and as fast for you as possible. So I would like to know if you've tried SATS before, if you're gonna try it, what you're gonna try it on, other topics you might want me to cover. But I would suggest give it a try, especially if you're maybe in an emergency situation. I think it might be really good. And do it right before you go to sleep. The first 30 minutes when you wake up in the morning are also really good for you to do SATS, because that's when your brain is still in the correct state. And then every time throughout the day where you have time to do something for yourself. And if you don't have time to do something for yourself, then maybe it's time to start. Because remember, and I always say this, like, this is a form of self-care. And you owe it to yourself to manifest a more easy life for you. And if you're at a point where you're so busy that you can't even do something like this for 5 to 10 minutes, then maybe it's time to start affirming for that, because you deserve some rest. You deserve some time for things that you care about and that put you in flow and that make you happy. Because we weren't meant to be grinding 24/7 and breaking our backs for literally nothing. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Like I said, leave a comment. I would love to hear your opinion, and I will see you in the next one.